Good morning, good afternoon, or good night from whenever and wherever you are watching us. I am Cameron Scandal. That is Steven Treffler. We are the sound. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Got another great show for you. We were supposed to be here yesterday, but some bad weather came about. We were afraid our internet connections were going to cut in and out. Power was going to be lost. And then today, we almost didn't record again because Steve was feeling under the weather, got sent home from work early, but it looks like you're recovering pretty okay. How you feeling? You feeling all right?
We're getting there.
You're just a soldier. You got a job to do. You're here to provide the people a service, and you are sticking by that. Good for you. That is to be commended.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, without further ado, let's get right into our show for today. We did this 2 episodes ago, and then we kind of forgot about it last show, but we're going to start off with things to mention. Things that were not necessarily show worthy, but we figured the people should be informed about these things. So first on our list, if you are a baseball fan, Tim Anderson and Jose Ramirez got into a bit of an altercation, to say the least. We're going to talk about that later on in the show, but they were both suspended. Ramirez got 3 games and Anderson got 6 games. So we'll see how that affects their teams. And again, we're going to talk about that later on in the show. Also, yesterday, which would be, Tuesday. So Monday, August 7th, was Jalen Hurts' 25th birthday. Happy birthday, Jalen.
Happy birthday, big guy.
Fly, Eagles, fly. Well, happy belated birthday at this point.
You got the big contract and
Yep.
Your birthday. There you go.
Yep, 25 years old. And a fun Jalen Hurts fact. He is the only quarterback in NFL, or only player in NFL history with at least 40 passing touchdowns and 30 rushing touchdowns all before turning 25. So Jalen Hurts is cemented, well, at least for now, in the NFL record book. So happy belated, Jalen Hurts. And our final thing to mention, Lionel Messi joining the Miami football team in the MLS. 7 goals in 4 games. 7 in 4 games. Steve says to me before the show, it's almost like when you add the best player to ever do something on your team, you tend to do better.
Yeah, and the best player who's still currently in his prime, quote unquote. So, no, Messi, first game had 1 goal. The last 3 games, he's had 2 goals in each game. He had the equalizer and a game-winning goal in one of them. Lionel Messi's come to the MLS, and he's putting on a show.
And that is our things to mention for today. As usual, we are going to continue with our NFL division ranking series. Sticking with the NFC because they just have all the weaker divisions. We've done only one AFC division, and it was the first one we did, the very first segment of this we did. We are going to the NFC East, home of the Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, and Commanders. So without further ado, let's get right into that. Starting off at number 4, the obvious worst team in this division, the Washington Commanders. Not a great year for them last year. 8-8-1 this last season. The 19th ranked offense, but the 3rd overall defense. Got a new owner this year with Josh Harris taking over for Dan Snyder. I looked into what their offseason moves and some of what blog pages for the Commanders are looking at and talking about. And the consensus is that they improved their O-line and they improved their defense, but they didn't really need those improvements to begin with. Like the places that mattered, they didn't get any better at. Sam Howell is, I guess, right now the starter for the coming season, but Jacoby Brissett is looking to get some reps soon here in training camp and get up with the starters. So it's Howell's job to lose, but Brissett still having an opportunity to get that job. So, Steve, like I said, I just think they improved in the wrong areas, and I don't see much of a change for this team in this new season.
Saying that the Commanders were 8-8-1, and me sitting here going, that's not a bad season for them.
Yeah, really.
They
just missed the playoffs.
The Commanders having a 500 season, that's solid for the boys. So,
yeah,
the Commanders are not good. Sam Howell, UNC quarterback, was real good in college. He's going to have a chance to prove himself. The Commanders aren't going to be bad enough to get Caleb Williams, but they're not going to be good. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes. They'll be in the upper tier of bad.
Yeah, they're probably going to get a 10 to 15 draft pick. but they're not going to get a top 10. Like, I don't think they're going to be one of the 10 worst teams, but they're definitely
Yeah.
not like, they're just that middle lower ground. So 4 is a great spot for them.
They're Washington. That's
Yep.
pretty much, that sums up our points here. Number 3, the New York Football Giants. 9-7-1 for them last year. Lost to Philadelphia in the divisional round. 18th ranked offense and the 25th ranked defense. They're all in on Daniel Jones. New York truly believes, and again, I was reading some specific Giants blogs and different posts. Everyone inside New York seems like, in the Giants, not the city, seems to feel that Daniel Jones is going to be or could be a top 10 quarterback. They gave him a huge contract, 4 years, $160 million. He's fine. I think he's a baseline starter, maybe a smidge below average. And Saquon Barkley, I originally said that because of his contract issues, it was going to be a rift in chemistry between him and the team, or maybe even some issues with him and the front office. What kind of plays are they going to run? How's he going to feel about what they plan to do going forward? But Saquon Barkley needs to play well regardless of his feelings, because he has to prove that he deserves more money and needs a better contract than what he got. That was the whole thing, that running backs have no value and they don't deserve all this money. Well, Saquon can't be coming out here and get this contract that he rightfully deserved, but a lot of people say running backs are overpaid and all that stuff. So he can't afford to have these chemistry and off the field sort of issues. So yeah, he needs to play well, and I think without a great receiving core, they will probably run through him a lot. But I think New York is just fine at number 3.
Yeah, New York, when they drafted Saquon, he was supposed to change that franchise around, and he had an incredible rookie year. I will not take anything from his rookie year. Like, he almost broke Eric Dickerson's rookie record for yards from scrimmage in a rookie season. So, Saquon last year had a great year, but he needs to have consecutive good years in order to do what, Daniel Jones, when Saquon plays well, it takes a lot of pressure off Daniel Jones. So
Yeah,
when Saquon's playing well, Daniel Jones is playing well. So, but the Giants, once again, they're not better than the other 2 teams in the division, and they might be a sneaky wild card spot, maybe.
yeah.
The NFC is hard because you never know who's going to be those mid-tier teams to step up and steal one of those spots.
I mean, no one expected them to make the playoffs last season to begin with. And New York's one of those teams that if they really want to have this success and build off what they had last year, everyone needs to buy into the system. And I think Brian Daboll is a good head coach to have to get people to buy into the system. So I think they'll do just fine. They'll probably have around the same season they did last year, maybe slightly better. Like maybe they'll have 1 or 2 games over 500. But yeah, I got them at number 3, or we get them at number 3 in the NFC East. Number 2, the Dallas Cowboys, a team that I have disliked for pretty much my entire life. 12-5 this last season, lost to San Francisco in the wild card round, the 11th offense and the 12th defense. Here's what I'll say, and this is kind of a overall Dallas take, and really not this past year, but it applies. And Steve, I think we talked about this once on Scandal Sports Hour. Every single year, people are saying Dallas is an NFC favorite. Dallas should make the Super Bowl this year. They're a top whatever offense, a top whatever defense. This is the Dak Prescott year to turn around, blah, 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 all this stuff. And every single year, the same things happen. I understand that Trayvon Diggs is pretty good. Micah Parsons is pretty good. CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, and Michael Gallup is a pretty solid receiving core. Like, they always have good players. Mike McCarthy, I think is a trash coach, but they always have good players.
He's not even their coach.
He's not their coach.
Mike McCarthy? I thought he was oh, yes, he is. You're right.
I was going to say.
I was thinking Green Bay. I was like, wait a second.
Yeah. But so my point is, like, every single year, everyone has the same thing about Dallas. And every single year, Dallas does the same thing. I don't believe in Dallas. I never think Dallas has been good. I don't think Dak Prescott has had any playoff success, any success ever. There was a point in time where Dak Prescott was being talked about as the best quarterback in the NFC, and that was never true. Dak Prescott might have never been a top 3 quarterback in the NFC. ever. Like when Carson Wentz was the Eagles starting quarterback before he got hurt, he was better than Dak Prescott. Like he just was. So I just never buy into Dallas hype. And I don't think that's my Eagles fan bias. I just think that's truly what the situation is. That every single year we always talk about Dallas, and every single year Dallas flops.
1995 was the last time that the Dallas Cowboys won a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you the last time the Cowboys were in the Super Bowl. I believe it might be the same year. I believe the last time they were there was 95. The Cowboys are not better than the first place team in this division. I am tired of hearing the same talk that you are with the Cowboys being, oh, they're going to do this. Oh, they're going to do that. Oh, people say that they're a legitimate team to win the Super Bowl every year.
No, never.
I don't like to hear that talk. Like, it's just frustrating to continuously. Me being a Dolphins fan, I hate the Cowboys for other reasons. Bill Parcells, you can do your research into that. But yeah, Cowboys at 2 is as high as they'll go as long as I'm alive, possibly. I mean, I just don't. Until Jerry Jones gets out of there, the Cowboys are never going to be a respected franchise in modern NFL.
Since I've been watching football, I don't think Dallas has ever been a true contender. When it comes time to play and they get on the field and they do the regular season, I've never once looked at a Dallas team and been like, that team can make the Super Bowl. We got the overhyped Dallas Cowboys at number 2. So that leaves us with the obvious number 1, and that is the Philadelphia Eagles, baby. That's us. Fly, Eagles, fly. 14-3 last season. Unfortunately lost to Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, but what are you going to do? The third-ranked offense and the second-best defense. I would argue the best defense in football last year. They might have been collectively the best team on both sides of the ball. Can I have an argument there for sure? My notes for Philadelphia is pretty much run it back.
Yeah.
Now, I do not think they're going to have as much success as they did last season. If you guys haven't seen our predicted Eagles and Dolphins schedules video, that is for you to watch. I'll probably post it here in this video. But I had predicted that the Eagles would go 12-5, which is obviously 2 games worse than this past season. But everyone keeps talking about how like Jalen Hurts needs to take a step up. Jalen Hurts needs to improve, needs to keep building, which is true. But that to me makes it sound like I just said that about Daniel Jones. Jalen Hurts was not on the same level as Daniel. Like, what more improvements does he need to make? Like, everyone can get better, obviously. No one is perfect. But people are talking like Jalen Hurts needs to take all these leaps and bounds. He just has to keep doing what he's been doing. Be the great leader and be the great player that he is. Now, the Eagles did lose both their coordinators in Steichen and Gannon. So we'll see how that affects the team. But yeah, my notes for Philadelphia is just pretty much run it back and do what they just did. They made no huge offseason adjustments besides bringing on DeAndre Swift. So yeah, just keep doing what they've been doing.
The only big offseason additions that they made was on draft night when they drafted half of Georgia's damn defense. I mean, I think that Philly actually got a lot better. Most people, and not us because we're the sound, but most people focus on the big names, right? The Eagles added talented depth to multiple positions in their defense in this draft. Yeah. And the names that they got are all guys who have played together. They have already meshed. So, and they did similar. They got a guy or two in last year's draft from Georgia too. So it's when you start to look at what Philly's doing on their defense, building this young, tough defense, you might not see this impact directly this season, but in 2 or 3 seasons when these guys are in their second or third year in the league, and Philly's got that defense, all of those studs, that's what Philly. So I think they got exponentially better just from a young talent standpoint this offseason. This is the second year in a row they've killed the draft. So I think the Eagles are the best team in the NFC. I think Jalen Hurts is the top 3 quarterback, and you'll never hear me say anything less than that.
Yep.
And the only way they got maybe a little worse is they lost Miles Sanders, but they still added DeAndre Swift. So how much worse did you get in the running back position? So I think that if anything, the Eagles did make a small improvement.
So yeah, that is our NFC East. I'm 99.9% sure this is the same exact. Actually, no, it is. This is the same exact order that it was this last season. So coming in at number 1, we got the Philadelphia Eagles. Number 2, the Dallas Cowboys. Number 3, the New York Giants, and number 4, the Washington Commanders. And that is our NFC East. I feel like I say this every time, but we kill these segments. We are just rolling through. Moving on to our next segment, it is everyone's favorite segment, and that is Soundbite. Soundbite is where Steve and I talk about different post-game interviews. Someone says something kind of interesting, or if there's perhaps a fist fight that breaks out during a baseball game, something that happens we want to listen to, we take a listen. So in case you didn't pick up on that, on Saturday, there was a baseball game between the Cleveland Guardians and the Chicago White Sox. Jose Ramirez was sliding into second base where Tim Anderson was playing, and 30 seconds later, there was a fist being thrown. Benches were being cleared, and suspensions were handed out. So let's take a look at this fist fight.
Oscar's throw is not in time.
He just missed him at second base. This is another rocket of a throw, and now...
Oh, boy.
Now
oh, my goodness. Here come the benches. Off we go. It started with Anderson and Ramirez. Swings being taken. Kopech had to hold him back, and everybody's spilling out here in Cleveland.
Well, now they come running out of the bullpen, which is a bit late, but they're adding some support to the effort. And that was one of the few that you actually saw coming to blows. You don't see that too often. And Timmy is still hot about this.
So there you have it. That is the intense bench clearing fight between those two guys. My mom said this to me last night, Steve, and she has a good point. When I said to her, did you see the baseball fight? And she's like, no. And I showed her, and she's like, oh, it's like a real fight. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? She's like, I thought it was like a sports fight, like where guys are kind of just shoving and getting to his faces, but like they put hands up, which is a good point. Like it's a legitimate like fight. So as we mentioned at the start of the show, this just came out either today or yesterday, I don't remember, but Tim Anderson got a 6-game suspension. Jose Ramirez got a 3-game suspension. Steve, you had mentioned to me when this video happened, like why this got so intense and the reason that both teams like got involved. So if you want to speak a little bit to that for our audience.
There are unwritten rules in baseball, and there's things that, like if their pitcher hits one of your guys, well, then your pitcher goes out and plunks one of their guys. So like there's unwritten rules that when somebody crosses the line, you have to be the one to hold that up because the umps aren't going to. What you're seeing here is the unwritten rule that I guess Ramirez had an issue with on this, which he says that he's had issues with Tim Anderson prior to this game. So I don't know what the context is with that, but after the tag, he's standing over top of him and he doesn't move, allowing the runner to stand up. Now, as a former baseball player, the only reason that I can think I'd be doing that is if the umpire didn't get a good angle and you want to hold the tag, you want to see if the guy tries to take his hand off the bag to dust himself off. When Ramirez stands up, he is the one that puts his finger in Anderson's face. He is the one that seems to be initiating the initial argument. But then when Anderson takes his glove off and throws it down and throws his hands up, that is when it really took a turn for the worst. And you see there's all these White Sox guys around Ramirez, and he's just standing there blindly throwing, and he ends up catching Tim Anderson with a blind punch, something that, Ramirez didn't even see himself throw that punch, and it catches him. And a lot of things I'm seeing, this has been coming for Anderson for a while. This is something that fans are really polarized about because you either love him or you hate him.
I can't speak to the whole baseball culture part of it, but I definitely can say you're right. So Anderson got 3 games more because he was the initiator. He was the aggressor, like with being the first one to throw his hands up.
Yeah, but I also think it's because he has a history with the flipping off fans in the crowd. Like you can Google Tim Anderson middle finger and there is a picture of him going like this to the fans on that. Like it was all over ESPN. They blurred it out. Like he has a history of poor behavior.
If they use that as part of the criteria, then shame on the MLB. I don't think you should be using other past incidents to make a ruling for this one specific one. I just don't find that very fair. But here's what I'll say, and I think this is a fair point from a outside. Like, I don't watch a whole lot of the MLB, so from an outside perspective, here's what I'll say. Ramirez is sliding head first into second base. And now I understand in any sport, if you're standing over top of someone for an excessive amount of time, it is annoying. It is kind of intimidating and like, yo, like, get off me. I understand that. I also understand what you're saying, Steve, about like, you don't want to be tagging people in the head because, get hit in the head is just like, hey, man, like, it's not something we do. And I understand that as well. But what did you want Anderson to do? Like, all he does is catch and go right down and tag. He has no choice but to tag his head and whatever he has there. And I also understand the fact, like I just said, about standing over him too long. But like you said, you don't know what the call is. You don't know if they're going to review something, if they need to check something. So I would also be frozen until there is an official call made and I get an all clear from someone, be like, okay, you can kind of relax now. But yeah, throwing off the glove and putting the hands up is clearly taking an extra step. Although, like you said, Ramirez, getting in his face and doing that is also not great, but you're not escalating it to actually throwing hands. Unless you're taking it a step too far, like you're insulting somebody's family, you're making threats, you're clearly being over the top excessive where it's like man to man, forget being an athlete. Like that's disrespectful and it needs to be checked. Fighting in a sport over sports things like that, where it's standing over top, hitting a head, whatever, is just ridiculous. Like it's heat of the moment. You're competing. Things happen. There's steps you can take other than physically fighting to work things out. And like usually stuff like that causes the fist fights or it's over in a matter of seconds. So like you said, the whole thing seemed trivial and I just found it excessive and everything that happened could have been explained. Not a great look for either one of these guys. Again, Anderson, 6-game suspension. Ramirez, a 3-game suspension. Just an unfortunate incident for these two guys. But hey, that was today's soundbite. Hope everyone enjoyed. I think this was the first sports moment we took at the soundbite, like an actual piece of a game. Yeah. So not something happened before or after. So little soundbite history. But I hope you enjoyed it. Today's soundbite. Switching from baseball to go to boxing, not something we cover very often, but a big thing kind of happened. So August 5th, the Jake Paul and Nate Diaz fight went underway. Jake Paul was the unanimous winner. Went all 10 rounds. He won by a unanimous decision. Jake Paul is a very polarizing and opinionated topic amongst the sports world, not just the boxing world. I think a lot of people have strong opinions about him and what he has done, good or bad, for the sport of boxing. So we figured we would give our 2 cents on that very topic. So, Steve, you are our resident boxing fan, and you brought this topic to my attention, so I will allow you to have the floor first. It's all yours.
Think about a guy who he started out in Disney Channel. He came into YouTube, and if anyone else, let's say if I don't know, Usher said, hey, I'm going to go box, whatever. People probably aren't going to tune in to watch it the way that they tune in to watch when Jake Paul says that he is going to fight Tyrone Woodley, Ben Askren, whatever UFC fighter of the day he decides he wants to fight. But what Jake Paul does that makes him so polarizing is the character that he's become. This villainous, people love to root against me type individual. And people are always, oh, well, Jake Paul, blah, 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 blah. But think about it. Every time you talk about Jake Paul, you're still giving him publicity. You're still talking about him. And that's all he needs to continue the success that he has. Would anybody watch him if he wasn't as egotistical and outlandish as he is? Would anybody watch him if he didn't come up there and act like the tool that we all see? But who is he when the cameras aren't on? And that's the thing that I think everyone needs to keep in perspective is Jake Paul is playing Jake Paul, the character. When the lights are brightest and the cameras are on, that's just what he does. Sure, can he get in a ring with somebody who's never boxed before, throw on some gloves, get some training, and look good for the people who pay to watch a YouTube celebrity fight? Yes, he will be successful in that. We've already seen what happens when he hops in a ring with a boxer, Tommy Fury. He lost. It's the only loss in his career. But you have to look at he's doing this because it's a character. It's an act. It's entertainment. Jake Paul is an entertainer. So if people didn't hate him as much as they do, he wouldn't be as successful as he is.
Yeah, look, you hit it right in the head with saying Jake Paul is a character. Everyone, including Jake Paul, knows that if he doesn't do the antics and says the things that he does, he's not going to get the publicity. He's not going to, no one's going to watch. It's all part of the pre-fight hype. And Jake Paul has done something, I think, bad for the sport of boxing and maybe sports as a whole. We'll see how this develops. But like you said right at the very end, no one really knows what Jake Paul is like behind the camera or when the cameras are off, besides Jake Paul and people close to him, obviously. But I compared him to LeVar Ball, where LeVar was making crazy statements that he probably never actually believed him, and making all these appearances on every major network, was just getting any camera he could to face him and so he could spread his message of my boys are going to be in the NBA, they're going to be successful, blah, blah, blah. And that's all fine, good for them. It's a great marketing scheme. And I'm not taking away from Jake Paul. He's probably a genius by doing what he has done, which is make celebrity boxing actual boxing. So, and you also touched on this point that anyone with money and a platform can really do this, where you go online to all your followers, you start talking smack to someone, I'm going to beat you up, you don't want to fight me, put all the money in, we'll do it whenever, blah, blah, blah. Get a trainer, all that stuff. Anyone can do that. Anyone. If you have a platform and followers and a beef with somebody who will fight you also in the ring, you can do this. Obviously, it's not a boxing draft. You got to train yourself and go into amateur fights and work your way up, right? You kind of get notoriety, you start fighting for titles. But Jake Paul didn't do any of that. Did he train? Sure. You tune in because of how polarizing and opposite he is, where it's like you're watching because, one, you're a Jake Paul fanboy who is rooting for him to prove everybody wrong. You like rooting for him because it's unpopular and he is the cool guy in the scene, all that stuff. So you want to see him win and prove everybody wrong. Or you want to see him finally shut up, get what he deserves, finally get proven that he is not who he says he is, and someone can finally, an actual boxer can go and show that he doesn't have what it takes. And I'm not saying that Jake Paul is not a talented boxer, because clearly he's fighting in professional fights. He has to have some sort of talent. I just think it's going to start taking away from other sports and their entirety.
Jake Paul only made like $1.2 million against Nate Diaz. Compared to his net worth, that's nothing. He does this just because he can. It's an ego thing.
Yeah, and you're not watching these fights because you want to see who's better, who's going to advance to the next, title, who are going to move. You're watching it because you want to watch Jake Paul fight someone. Like, it's not, like I said, I feel like it takes away from the special part of what boxing is. It is what it is. That fight was on Saturday. Jake Paul did win against Nate Diaz in a unanimous decision in 10 rounds. And that is our thoughts, that Jake Paul's kind of sleazy. And kind of that sums it up.
Can't knock him as a businessman.
Yeah, no, and it's good for him, I guess. But yeah, those are our thoughts. And that is going to do it for us today. This, again, we say this every show, but this just the single most efficient show we've ever had. We blew through all these segments, but no matter what, we gave you good content. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something. We always have fun doing this. And always remember, if you are ever in need of intelligent or cogent sports analysis, just listen to the sound. We will always have you covered. Thank you so much for joining us today, guys. We hope to see you next time. Stay safe. Have a great rest of your day, and take care.
Listen to the sound. I listen to the sound.